or the achchi, or the eerie silence that sometimes descends, punctuated only by the hum of unseen machinery, a silence that feels less like operational efficiency and more like watchful waiting. The weight of that silence is palpable. It settles in your chest, a low-thrumming anxiety that vibrates against your ribs. It's a silence that breeds speculation, that fuels the endless rumors that circulate among the Bessus personnel. Some whisper of ancient entities slumbering beneath the mountain, disturbed by the intrusion of humanity. Others speak of fail-safe protocols gone awry, of rogue AI systems monitoring every breath, every heartbeat within Cheyenne Mountain. Still others, the more pragmatic ones, attribute it to simple atmospheric pressure changes, to the mountain settling, to the complex interplay of ventilation systems working in concert. But even they, even the most grounded among us, can't deny the feeling of being observed, of being part of something far larger and far stranger than they can comprehend. One evening, while pulling a late shift monitoring seismic activity, I experienced it firsthand. The usual low-level tremors, the background noise of the earth breathing were present on the screens. But then a new signal appeared, a deep, resonant pulse that seemed to emanate from the very core of the mountain. It wasn't a natural earthquake. The waveform was too regular, too deliberate. I immediately alerted my supervisor, a grizzled veteran named Sergeant Miller, a man who had seen more than his fair share of unexplained phenomena within these walls. "Miller here," his voice crackled over the comms. "Sergeant, I'm picking up an unusual seismic signature, deep resonant pulse originating within the mountain itself. Doesn't match any known geological activity." There was a pause, a long drawn-out silence that felt like an eternity. I could practically hear him chewing on his ever-present cigar. "Show me," he finally grunted. He arrived moments later, his face etched with a mixture of skepticism and concern. He peered at the screens, his eyes narrowed, his brow furrowed. "Damn," he muttered under his breath. "I haven't seen anything like this in, well, ever." We spent the next several hours analyzing the signal, running it through every diagnostic program we had. Nothing. It was as if the pulse was designed to defy analysis, to remain just outside the grasp of our understanding. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Even Miller, normally unflappable, was visibly agitated. "What do you think it is, Sergeant?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He took a long drag from his cigar, the cherry glowing like a malevolent eye in the dim light. "I don't know, son," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "And frankly, that's what scares me the most. In this place, it's not the things you know that'll get you. It's the things you don't." The pulse continued for several hours, then abruptly ceased, leaving behind only the unsettling silence. We reported the incident, of course, but the official explanation was unsatisfactory. "Equipment malfunction," they said. "A power surge, a glitch in the matrix," one might even joke. But we knew better. We felt it in our bones. This wasn't a malfunction. This was something else entirely. Days turned into weeks, and the base returned to its usual, albeit tense, routine. The scientists continued their experiments, the soldiers performed their drills, and the officers attended their meetings. But the underlying unease remained, a constant hum beneath the surface of everyday life. One evening, while on patrol near the North Tunnel, I noticed something strange. A faint, shimmering distortion in the air, like heat rising from asphalt on a summer day, but colder somehow. It was barely perceptible, but it was there. I stopped, my hand instinctively reaching for my sidearm. "Did you see that?" I asked Miller, my patrol partner, a young guy fresh out of basic training. He squinted. "See what, Sergeant?" That, that shimmer," I said, pointing towards the tunnel entrance. "There, just above the ground." Miller looked again, then shook his head. "I don't see anything, Sergeant." "Maybe you're tired." I dismissed his skepticism, but the unease I felt only intensified. I pulled out my binoculars and focused on the area. The shimmer was still there, pulsating gently, almost like a heartbeat. "Stay here," I told Miller. "I'm going to take a closer look." He hesitated. "Are you sure that's a good idea, Sergeant?" "Just stay put," I repeated, and started walking towards the tunnel entrance. As I approached, the shimmer grew stronger, more defined. I could feel a strange energy emanating from it, a low vibration that resonated in my chest. I raised my hand to touch it, but hesitated. Something told me that touching it would be a mistake, a serious mistake. Suddenly, the air crackled with energy, and a voice echoed in my head, clear as a bell, yet without any discernible source. "Leave this place," it said. "Turn back. You are not welcome here." I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked around, but there was no one there. Just the tunnel entrance, the shimmering distortion, and the cold, unyielding rock of the mountain. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling slightly. "Show yourself." The voice echoed again, even louder this time. "Leave, before it is too late." I stumbled backward, my mind reeling. What was happening? Was I hallucinating? Was this some kind of psychological warfare tactic? I turned and ran back to Miller, who was standing there looking bewildered. "What was that, Sergeant?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "Are you okay?" "We need to get out of here," I said, gasping for breath. "Now!" We ran back to the main complex, my mind racing. I couldn't explain what I had heard, but I knew one thing for sure. Something was very wrong. As we hurried through the corridors, I noticed that the lights seemed to flicker erratically and the air grew colder, almost biting. Miller, usually stoic, was visibly unnerved, constantly checking his weapon and glancing around nervously. We reached the main control room where General Thompson was still overseeing the simulation. "General, we need to talk," Miller said, his voice urgent. Thompson turned around, his brow furrowed. "What is it, Sergeant? Can't you see we're in the middle of something important?" "Sir, something's happening," I interjected, my voice shaking slightly. I heard a voice. It told us to leave." Thompson looked at me incredulously. "A voice? What are you talking about, Sergeant? Are you feeling all right?" "I don't know, sir, but it was real. It sounded like it was coming from the mountain itself." A tense silence filled the room. The simulation screens continued to display their complex data, oblivious to the growing unease in the room. Finally, Thompson sighed and rubbed his temples. "Look, I appreciate your concern, but we can't afford to be distracted right now. This simulation is crucial for national security. I think you both are just tired. Go get some rest and report back in the morning." "But, sir, with all due respect," Miller began, but Thompson cut him off. "That's an order, Sergeant. Dismissed." Defeated, we turned and left the control room. As we walked down the corridor, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were making a terrible mistake. The air seemed to thicken with each step, the hum of the machinery growing louder, more insistent. It was as if the mountain itself was trying to warn us, its silent voice echoing in the steel corridors. "He doesn't believe us, does he?" Miller said, his voice barely a whisper. "No," I replied, "he doesn't. He thinks we're seeing things, imagining things, but we both know what we saw, what we felt. So what do we do?" I stopped walking and turned to face him. "We do what we always do. We investigate. We find out what's really going on here." We decided to start with the maintenance logs. If the system was malfunctioning, there had to be some record of it. We headed to the maintenance department, a labyrinthine network of corridors and workshops hidden deep within the mountain. The air here was thick with the smell of oil and ozone, the sounds of machinery, a constant drone. We found Sergeant Reynolds, a grizzled veteran who had been maintaining the base's systems for over 20 years. He was hunched over a complex piece of equipment, his face illuminated by the glow of a soldering iron. "Reynolds," I said, "we need your help. We're looking for any anomalies in the system logs, anything out of the ordinary." He looked up, his eyes narrowed. "Anomalies? What kind of anomalies?" "Anything. Power fluctuations, unusual sensor readings, anything that doesn't fit the pattern." He sighed and wiped his brow with a greasy rag. "Look, I'm busy here. We've got a critical system failure in Sector 7. I don't have time to chase ghosts." "This isn't about ghosts, Reynolds. This is about national security. We think something is seriously wrong with the base's systems." He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right. Give me a few minutes to finish this up and I'll see what I can find. But don't expect miracles. These logs are a mess." While Reynolds worked, Miller and I scanned the room. The maintenance department was a chaotic jumble of tools, spare parts, and half-finished projects. It was a testament to the constant struggle to keep the base running, to maintain its aging infrastructure. After what felt like an eternity, Reynolds turned back to us, his face grim. "I found something," he said. "A series of unexplained power surges in the primary processing unit. They started about a week ago, and they've been increasing in frequency and intensity." "And what's causing them?" I asked. "I don't know," he replied. "There's no apparent cause. The system is running diagnostics, but it's not reporting any hardware failures." "Could it be a software glitch?" Miller suggested. "Maybe," Reynolds said, "but I've never seen anything like it. It's like the system is generating its own power, drawing energy from somewhere else." The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. "Drawing energy from somewhere else? What do you mean?" Reynolds shrugged. "I don't know. I'm just telling you what the logs say. It's like the system is alive." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. We exchanged a look, a silent understanding passing between us. We were on the right track. We were getting closer to the truth. "Can you trace the power surges?" I asked. "Can you find out where they're originating from?" "I can try," Reynolds said, "but it's going to take time. The system is complex and the surges are erratic." "We don't have time," Miller said. "We need to know now." "Then you're going to have to help me," Reynolds said. "I can't do this alone." And so we spent the next several hours poring over the system logs, tracing the flow of energy through the base's intricate network of circuits and processors. It was tedious, painstaking work, but we were driven by a sense of urgency, a feeling that we were racing against time. As the hours passed, we began to see a pattern emerging. The power surges were not random. They were concentrated in a specific area of the base, a section that housed a long-forgotten experimental research lab. The lab had been shut down decades ago, its purpose shrouded in secrecy. It was rumored to have been involved in some kind of advanced energy research, but the details were vague and contradictory. "That's it," I said. "That's where the surges are coming from. We need to get into that lab." "But it's sealed off," Miller said. "It's been locked down for years. No one's been inside since it was shut down." "Then we'll have to find a way in," I said, "because I have a feeling that whatever's going on in that lab is connected to everything else. It's connected to the simulation, to the system malfunctions, to the feeling that the base is alive." We knew that breaking into the lab would be a risky move. It would be a direct violation of orders, and it could have serious consequences. But we also knew that we couldn't ignore what we had found. We had to find out what was going on in that lab, no matter the cost. We decided to go under the cover of night. The base was always active, but there were fewer personnel around in the late hours. We met back up with Reynolds, who gave us the schematics for the lab's layout, security system, and the location of a maintenance access point. "Be careful," Reynolds said, his voice low and urgent. "That lab is dangerous. I don't know what they were working on in there, but it wasn't anything good." We nodded, and then we disappeared into the shadows, heading towards the sealed-off lab, ready to confront whatever secrets it held. The air grew colder as we approached, the hum of the machinery fading into an unsettling silence. It felt as if the mountain itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what we would find. We reached the maintenance access point, a small unmarked door tucked away in a dimly lit corridor. Miller expertly bypassed the lock, and we slipped inside. The air inside the lab was stale and heavy, thick with the scent of dust and decay. The room was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of our flashlights. We moved slowly, cautiously, our senses on high alert. The lab was filled with strange and unfamiliar equipment, massive generators, complex wiring systems, and rows of consoles covered in cryptic symbols. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie, a relic of a bygone era of technological experimentation. As we ventured deeper into the lab, we began to notice something strange. The equipment was not completely dormant. There were faint flickers of light, subtle hums of energy, as if the machines were still active, still running even after all these years. And then we saw it. In the center of the lab, there was a large cylindrical chamber made of some kind of translucent material. Inside the chamber, there was a swirling vortex of energy, a pulsating mass of light and color. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, but also terrifying. It felt alien, otherworldly, like something that should not exist within the confines of this mountain. As we stared at the vortex, it began to grow brighter, more intense. The chamber began to shake, the air around it crackling with energy. And then a voice echoed through the lab, a voice that wasn't human, a voice that was cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of emotion. "You should not be here," the voice said. "You have stumbled upon something that you do not understand. Turn back while you still can." Dr. Aris Thorne, bless his intellectual curiosity, was the first to break the stunned silence. "Who are you? What is that?" he demanded, his voice trembling slightly, but laced with a defiant edge. I admired his courage, even as I gripped my sidearm a little tighter. You never knew what you might find down here, and this was far beyond anything I'd ever imagined. The vortex pulsed again, the light intensifying. The voice echoed once more, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I am a guardian. This is a gate. You are trespassers. A gate to where? Thorn pressed, completely ignoring the warning. He was like a moth drawn to a flame, his scientific mind overriding any sense of self-preservation. To a place beyond your comprehension, the voice replied, the coldness in its tone sending a shiver down my spine. A place where the laws of your universe do not apply. I glanced at Sergeant Miller, his face a mask of grim determination. He gave me a barely perceptible nod, indicating that he was ready for anything. We were soldiers, after all. It was our job to protect this place no matter what it contained, even if it meant facing something. Like this. We're not trespassing, I said, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. This is a United States military installation. We have every right to be here. The vortex seemed to vibrate in response, the light flickering erratically. Your claims of ownership are irrelevant. This power predates your nation, your species. You are but fleeting visitors on this world. Thorne scoffed. Power? What kind of power? Is this some kind of advanced technology? An alien artifact? It is a doorway, the voice repeated, its patience seemingly wearing thin. A doorway that should remain closed for your own safety and for the safety of your world. The air in the chamber grew colder, the hum of the machinery rising to a deafening crescendo. I could feel the energy crackling around us, raising the hairs on my arms. This was getting dangerous, fast. We're not leaving, I said, my voice barely audible above the din. We need to know what's going on here. We need to understand what this is. The vortex flared again, bathing the chamber in an almost blinding light. And then the voice spoke one last time, its tone laced with a chilling finality. Very well, it said. You have made your choice. Prepare to face the consequences. Suddenly, the vortex began to spin faster and faster, the light intensifying until it was almost unbearable. The chamber shook violently, the walls groaning under the strain. And then, with a deafening roar, the vortex exploded, sending a wave of energy surging outwards. I threw my arm up to shield my eyes, bracing myself against the force of the blast. When the light finally subsided, I lowered my arm and looked around. The chamber was a mess, equipment scattered everywhere, wires sparking and smoking. But the vortex was gone. In its place stood something else, something that made my blood run cold, something that I will never forget. It was a figure, tall and slender, cloaked in shadows. Its face was hidden, obscured by the darkness of its hood, but I could feel its presence, a palpable wave of power that radiated from it like heat from a furnace. Who are you? Thorne stammered, his voice barely a whisper. The figure slowly raised its head, revealing a pair of eyes that glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. And then it spoke, its voice a low, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate in my very bones. I am what you have awakened, it said, and now I am here to claim what is mine. And that's when I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the core, that we'd made a terrible, terrible mistake. We had opened a door that should have remained closed, and now we were going to pay the price. A price that could very well cost us everything. The air in the war room grew thick, heavy with an almost palpable sense of dread. General Harding, ever the stoic, stood his ground, though I could see the beads of sweat forming on his brow. "Identify yourself," he commanded, his voice strained but firm. "State your purpose." The figure remained motionless for a moment, as if savoring the tension in the room. Then it took a step forward, and the shadows seemed to deepen around it, obscuring its form even further. "Purpose?" it echoed, the word dripping with disdain. "My purpose is to reclaim what was stolen, what was taken from me long ago." "Stolen," Harding repeated, his eyes narrowed. "We haven't stolen anything. This is a United States military installation. We operate under the authority of the government." The figure let out a hollow laugh, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Government, authority, you speak of such fleeting things. I existed long before your government, long before your nation. This mountain," it said, gesturing around the room with a skeletal hand. "This was mine." "And you," it added, its glowing eyes fixing on Harding. "You have trespassed." "This is getting us nowhere," Colonel Reynolds interjected, his hand hovering near his sidearm. "We don't know what this thing is, but it's clearly hostile. I recommend we take it down." "Stand down, Colonel," Harding snapped, his gaze still locked on the figure. "We don't know what we are dealing with. We need to proceed with caution." He turned back to the entity. "What exactly do you want?" "What I want is simple," the figure replied, its voice regaining a chilling smoothness. "I want what is rightfully mine. I want the power that was taken from me, the power that lies dormant within this mountain." "Power?" Thorne blurted out, his voice trembling. "What power are you talking about?" The figure turned its gaze on Thorne, and the intensity of its eyes seemed to physically push him back. "You," it hissed, "you were the one who awakened me. You were the one who delved too deep. You sought knowledge that was not meant for you." Thorne shrank back, his face pale with fear. I didn't know," he stammered. "I was just trying to understand the energy readings, the anomalies." "Ignorance is no excuse," the figure said, its voice laced with venom. "You have unleashed something that should have remained buried. And now you will all suffer the consequences." Suddenly, the lights in the war room flickered and died, plunging us into darkness. Emergency lights kicked in, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. A low hum filled the air, growing louder and louder until it was almost deafening. "What's happening?" someone shouted, their voice lost in the cacophony. "I don't know, but I don't like it," I replied, my hand instinctively reaching for my sidearm. The figure in the doorway remained motionless, its eyes glowing even brighter in the dim light. "The mountain is awakening," it said, its voice now a low growl, "and it is not pleased." Then the ground began to shake. Not violently, but a subtle tremor that ran through the entire complex. Computer screens flickered and died, replaced by static. The emergency lights flickered erratically, threatening to plunge us into complete darkness once more. "Seismic activity detected throughout the complex," a voice crackled over the emergency comms. "Origin unknown. Magnitude increasing." Panic began to set in. People were shouting, pushing, trying to get out of the war room. But the figure in the doorway stood firm, blocking our exit. "You cannot escape," it said, its voice echoing through the room. "This is your fate." I pushed my way through the crowd, determined to confront this thing. Who are you? I demanded, my voice barely audible above the din. What do you want? The figure turned its gaze towards me, its glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. I am a guardian, it said. I am the protector of this place, and you have violated its sanctity. We didn't know, I pleaded. We didn't mean to cause any harm. Ignorance is no excuse, the figure replied. You have opened a door that should have remained closed, and now you must face the consequences. The shaking intensified, throwing people off their feet. The low hum grew even louder, vibrating through our bones. It felt like the entire mountain was about to collapse around us. What can we do? I shouted. How can we stop this? The figure hesitated for a moment, as if considering my question. There is only one way, it said finally. You must reverse what you have done. You must seal the breach. How? I asked, desperate for any information. How do we seal the breach? The answer lies in the heart of the mountain, the figure replied. But be warned, the path is fraught with danger, and not all of you will survive. With that, the figure stepped aside, allowing us to pass. The lights flickered back on, revealing a scene of chaos and confusion. People were scrambling to their feet, trying to assess the damage. All right, listen up, I shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. We need to figure out what's going on and how to fix it. Dr. Thorne, what do you know about this breach the figure mentioned? Dr. Thorne, looking pale and shaken, stepped forward. I believe it's referring to the anomaly we discovered in Sector 7, he said. The energy source we were experimenting with. Can you seal it? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. We've never tried. It's incredibly unstable. We have to try, I said. It's our only chance. I turned to the rest of the team. All right, people, let's move. We're going to Sector 7. And we're going to fix this mess no matter what it takes. As we made our way towards Sector 7, the tremors continued, growing stronger with each passing moment. The mountain was definitely awakening, and it was angry. We had no idea what we were about to face, but we knew that the fate of Cheyenne Mountain, and perhaps the world, rested on our shoulders. The weight of that responsibility was almost crushing, but we pressed on, determined to make things right, to atone for our mistake. The corridors, usually humming with the quiet efficiency of a high-tech military installation, were now groaning under the strain. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the emergency lighting flickered erratically. I could hear the distant rumble of falling debris, a constant reminder of the instability that surrounded us. Report! I barked into my comm, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rising panic that threatened to consume me. Sir, Sector 7 is experiencing heavy structural damage, came the reply from Miller, his voice tight with stress. Life support systems are failing, and we've lost contact with several teams. We're trying to reroute power, but the grid is overloaded. Understood, Miller. Focus on evacuating personnel. We're on our way. I cut the connection and quickened our pace, pushing past fallen equipment and dodging streams of water leaking from damaged pipes. As we approached the entrance to Sector 7, we were met with the scene of chaos. Emergency crews were struggling to clear debris and evacuate injured personnel. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning metal. What's the situation, Lieutenant? I asked a young officer who was frantically directing the rescue efforts. Sir, it's bad. We've got multiple breaches in the containment walls, and the energy readings are off the charts. We think whatever they were working on in there is destabilizing. Containment walls? What exactly was being contained in Sector 7? I demanded, my voice laced with suspicion. The lieutenant hesitated, his eyes darting nervously. I'm not authorized to disclose that information, sir. Lieutenant, lives are at stake. I need to know what we're dealing with. I pressed him, my patience wearing thin. He sighed, relenting. It's a research project, sir. Top secret. They were experimenting with manipulating energy fields, trying to create a stable wormhole. A wormhole. My blood ran cold. I'd heard rumors of such experiments, whispers of forbidden science conducted in the deepest recesses of Cheyenne Mountain. But I had dismissed them as mere speculation, the stuff of science fiction. Now it seemed those rumors were all too real. And what went wrong? I asked, dreading the answer. We don't know for sure, sir, but the energy readings spiked exponentially, and then the containment wall started to fail. We think the wormhole became unstable, creating some kind of feedback loop. A feedback loop. That could explain the tremors, the structural damage, the erratic energy readings. The wormhole was feeding on itself, growing stronger and more unstable with each passing moment. How do we shut it down? I asked, desperately searching for a solution. The lieutenant shook his head. I don't know, sir. The scientists who were working on the project are all dead or missing. We have no idea how to control it. We were on our own. A chilling realization washed over me, the weight of it pressing down on my chest. This wasn't just a malfunction. It was an escalating crisis with no apparent solution. What about the fail-safe protocols? Surely there were emergency procedures in place. I pressed, clinging to the hope that there was some hidden switch, some last-ditch effort we could make. We've tried everything, sir, Lieutenant confirmed, his voice heavy with defeat. The primary systems are offline, and the backup systems are corrupted. The wormhole has overridden everything. Then we need to find something, anything, that can disrupt the energy flow, I declared, refusing to accept defeat. There has to be a weakness, a point of vulnerability. I turned to the comms officer. Get me everything we have on wormhole theory, on energy manipulation, on anything even remotely relevant to this situation. Scour the archives, leave no stone unturned. Yes, sir, the officer responded, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Time was running out. With every passing moment, the energy readings were climbing, the hum intensifying. We were teetering on the brink of something catastrophic, something that could unravel the very fabric of reality. Dr. Thorne, I said, turning back to the scientist, what about the temporal displacement experiments? Did you find anything that could be used to create a localized disruption field? Thorne stroked his chin thoughtfully. There were some promising results, but the energy requirements were astronomical. And the stability, well, let's just say it was less than ideal. We managed to create a few micro-singularities, but they collapsed almost instantly. Almost instantly is better than nothing, I countered. Can we replicate the process? Can we scale it up, even if only for a few seconds? It would be incredibly risky, Thorne warned. We're talking about manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. A slight miscalculation could have unforeseen consequences. We don't have a choice, Doctor, I said grimly. We either take the risk or we watch as this mountain devours us all. Thorn nodded slowly, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. All right, he said, let's see if we can coax a singularity into staying for a little longer. While Thorn and his team scrambled to reconfigure the temporal displacement equipment, I turned my attention back to the figure in the doorway. It was still there, watching us, its glowing eyes unwavering. What do you want? I demanded, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. What is your purpose? The figure remained silent for a moment, its head tilting slightly, as if it were considering my question. Then it spoke, its voice a low, resonant rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very bones of the mountain. I am the guardian, it said. I am the protector. I am the voice of the mountain. The mountain is trying to destroy us, I retorted. How can you be its protector? You misunderstand, the figure said. The mountain is not trying to destroy you. It is trying to defend itself. Defend itself from what? I asked. From the darkness that threatens to consume it, the figure replied. From the void that seeks to unravel all that is. I frowned, trying to make sense of its cryptic words. What darkness? What void? The figure did not answer. Instead, it simply raised its hand, pointing towards the wormhole generator. That is the key, it said. That is the gateway. That is the source of the darkness. I stared at the wormhole generator, my mind racing. Was it possible that we had been wrong all along? That the wormhole wasn't a source of energy, but a conduit for something far more sinister? What do you want us to do? I asked the figure. How can we stop this darkness? Close the gateway, the figure said. Sever the connection. Seal the void. But if we close the gateway, I protested, we lose access to the wormhole. We lose the ability to travel to other worlds. Some doors are best left unopened, the figure said. Some paths are best left untrodden. I hesitated, torn between the desire to explore the unknown and the need to protect our own world. The fate of humanity, perhaps even the fate of the universe, hung in the balance. I need to think about this, I said finally. I need time to consider the implications. The figure nodded slowly. Time is a luxury you no longer possess, it said. The darkness is growing stronger. The void is drawing closer. You must act quickly, or all will be lost. With that, the figure turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the ever-present hum of the mountain. The weight of responsibility pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. I knew that I had a difficult decision to make, a decision that could determine the future of everything we held dear. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. The mountain had spoken, and its words had changed everything. Now, it was up to us to decide whether to heed its warning or to continue down the path of our own destruction. And as the energy readings continued to climb, I knew that our time was running out. We needed a miracle, and we needed it fast. The mountain was awakening, and the world was about to change forever. The silence in the war room was deafening, broken only by the rhythmic hum of the life support systems and the frantic tapping of keyboards. General Thompson stared intently at the holographic display, his face etched with concern. The energy spike was now off the charts, a crimson line that threatened to overwhelm the entire system. "Report!" he barked, his voice raspy. "Sir, the energy signature is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's originating from deep within the mountain, almost like it's alive. Dr. Aris Thorne, the lead scientist, stammered, his fingers flying across his console. We're detecting fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field as well. It's as if the mountain itself is resonating with something ancient. Ancient? What in God's name are you talking about, Doctor? Thompson snapped, his patience wearing thin. I don't know, sir, but the readings are consistent with theories about dormant energies, ley lines, the Earth's own consciousness, if you will, Thorne replied, his voice laced with a hint of disbelief. It's as if the mountain is communicating. The general scoffed. Communicating? With whom? And what's it saying? Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, plunging the war room into momentary darkness. A collective gasp rippled through the room as emergency lights kicked in, casting long, eerie shadows. The holographic display went haywire, displaying a series of incomprehensible symbols and patterns. What the hell was that? Thompson roared, gripping the edge of the table. We've lost primary power, sir. Backup generators are online, but the energy surge is interfering with all systems, a technician yelled from across the room. Doctor, can you stabilize the energy readings? Thompson demanded, his eyes fixed on Thorne. I'm trying, sir, but it's like trying to hold back a tsunami with a teacup. The energy is building exponentially. I fear we're reaching a critical threshold, Thorne replied, his voice trembling. Just then, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Not a violent earthquake, but a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to emanate from the very core of the mountain. What's happening? Someone screamed. It's the mountain, sir. It's responding to the energy surge, Thorne exclaimed, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. Thompson felt a strange sensation, a tingling in his bones, a sense of being watched, scrutinized by something vast and ancient. He could almost hear a voice, not with his ears, but with his mind, a deep, resonant hum that echoed through his very being. The mountain, it's warning us, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Warning us about what, sir? Thorne asked, leaning closer. Thompson shook his head, trying to make sense of the jumbled thoughts swirling in his mind. I don't know, but we need to be ready. The figure in the doorway took another step forward, and I raised my weapon, the cold steel a small comfort in the face of the unknown. Stop right there, I commanded, my voice echoing through the corridor. Identify yourself. The figure didn't respond, its glowing eyes fixed on me. It slowly raised its hand, and a wave of energy washed over us, knocking us off our feet. I landed hard on the steel floor, my head swimming. When I looked up, the figure was gone. What was that? Thorne stammered, pushing himself up to a sitting position. I don't know, Doc, I said, rubbing my head. But I have a feeling we're about to find out. We scrambled to our feet and continued down the corridor, the sense of urgency growing with each step. The hum of the machinery was almost deafening now, and the air crackled with energy. We reached the main control room, and what we saw there made our blood run cold. The massive screens that usually displayed satellite feeds and radar data were now filled with swirling patterns of energy, chaotic and unpredictable. The consoles were blinking and beeping erratically, and the air was thick with the smell of ozone. The technicians who had been manning the stations were gone, vanished without a trace. What in God's name is going on here? Thorne exclaimed, his voice filled with panic. I scanned the room, my eyes searching for any sign of life, any clue as to what had happened. "I don't know, Doc," I said, "but it looks like the mountain is about to wake up." Suddenly, the lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Emergency lights flickered to life, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. The hum of the machinery intensified, reaching a fever pitch. Then a voice echoed through the room, a deep, resonant voice that seemed to come from the very walls themselves. "You have trespassed," the voice boomed. "You have disturbed my slumber." Thorn grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. "What is that?" he whispered, his eyes wide with terror. "I think," I said, "we're about to meet the mountain." The floor beneath us began to shake, and cracks appeared in the walls. The console sparked and exploded, sending showers of sparks flying through the air. The entire room was coming apart at the seams. "We need to get out of here," I shouted, grabbing Thorn by the arm and pulling him towards the exit. We stumbled through the darkened corridors, the mountain groaning and shaking around us. The air was thick with dust and debris, and it was hard to see where we were going. We could hear the sound of explosions and collapsing structures echoing through the mountain. We finally reached the main blast doors, the massive steel doors that sealed off the entrance to the base. I punched in the access code, my fingers trembling with adrenaline. The doors began to grind open, slowly revealing the outside world. As we stepped out into the fresh air, we were greeted by a sight that made our hearts sink. The mountain was glowing with an eerie green light, and bolts of energy crackled across the sky. The surrounding landscape was scorched and barren, as if it had been struck by lightning. "What have we done?" Thorn whispered, his voice filled with despair. I looked at him, my face grim. "I don't know, Doc," I said, "but I have a feeling we're about to find out." The mountain seemed to pulse with energy, the ground vibrating beneath our feet. It was as if the very essence of the mountain was about to be unleashed, and we were standing right in the path of its fury. "We need to warn someone," Thorn said, his voice regaining some of its resolve. "We need to tell them what's happening here." "It's too late for that, Doc," I said. "I think the mountain has already cut off all communication." We were alone, trapped between a raging mountain and a devastated landscape. The fate of the world, it seemed, rested on our shoulders. "Then we fight," I said, my voice firm. "We fight for our survival and for the survival of everyone else." Thorn looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "What do we do?" he asked. I took a deep breath, trying to clear my head. "We need to find a way to stop the mountain," I said. "We need to find its core, its source of power, and shut it down." "But how?" Thorn asked. "We don't know anything about this. We're just scientists." "Then we learn," I said. "We use our brains, our knowledge, our skills to figure out what's going on and how to stop it. We have to." We turned back towards the mountain, our faces set with grim determination. The task ahead of us was daunting, almost impossible. But we had no choice. The fate of the world depended on it. The mountain was awakening, and we were the only ones who could stop it. We had to delve deeper, brave the unknown, and uncover the secrets that lay hidden within Cheyenne Mountain. The journey would be fraught with peril, but we had to press on, driven by the hope that we could somehow avert the impending catastrophe. "All right," I said, breaking the silence that had settled between us. Let's go over the plan one more time. General Thompson wants us to start with the primary power source. He believes that's where the anomaly is originating. Makes sense, Sarah replied, adjusting her tactical vest. If the mountain is drawing power from an external source, cutting it off might at least buy us some time. Exactly, I confirmed. But we need to be prepared for anything. The mountain's defenses will likely be active, and we don't know what else we'll encounter down there. We reached the main entrance to the base, a massive steel door that was now humming with an unnatural energy. The air around it crackled with static, and I could feel a faint vibration through my boots. This isn't good, Mark muttered, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. The energy readings are off the charts. Let's move, I urged, swiping my access card and punching in the override code. The door groaned open, revealing a dimly lit corridor that stretched into the depths of the mountain. We stepped inside, our weapons raised, and began our descent. The air grew colder and heavier with each step, and the silence was broken only by the sound of our own breathing and the rhythmic thud of our boots on the metal floor. As we rounded the corner, we came face to face with the security checkpoint. The guards were slumped over their consoles, their eyes glazed over, and their bodies twitching uncontrollably. What the hell happened here? Sarah whispered, her voice laced with concern. I don't know, I replied, cautiously approaching one of the guards. But it doesn't look good. I checked for a pulse but found none. The guard was dead. They're all dead, I announced grimly. Something killed them. But what? Mark asked, his eyes darting around nervously. There's no sign of a struggle. Whatever it was fast and silent, I said. We need to be careful. We continued our descent, our senses on high alert. The corridors grew narrower and more claustrophobic, and the air became thick with an acrid smell that burned our nostrils. As we approached the primary power source, we began to hear a low, rhythmic hum that grew louder with each step. The walls vibrated with the force of the energy, and I could feel my teeth rattling in my skull. We reached the main power generator room, a vast chamber filled with humming machinery and crackling energy. It was like stepping into the heart of a storm, the air thick with ozone and the ground vibrating beneath our feet. Technicians in white lab coats scurried around, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and determination. Alarms blared and red lights flashed, painting the scene in an apocalyptic glow. What the hell is going on here? I yelled over the din, my voice barely audible above the cacophony. A technician, his face pale and sweaty, rushed towards us. Commander, the primary energy source is overloading. We've tried everything, but we can't contain it. Dr. Thorne pushed past me, his eyes wide with a mixture of horror and fascination. Show me the readings. I need to see the energy fluctuations. The technician led him to a console where a series of complex graphs and charts displayed the erratic energy levels. Thorne stared at the data, his brow furrowed in concentration. The energy signature. It's unlike anything I've ever seen, he muttered, his voice barely audible. It's almost organic. Organic, I repeated, my mind struggling to grasp the concept. What do you mean, organic? I don't know exactly, Thorne replied, his eyes still glued to the console. But it's as if the energy source is alive. It's evolving, adapting, and it's growing exponentially. The figure from the corridor materialized behind us, its glowing eyes fixed on the pulsating energy core. The mountain hungers, it said, its voice a low, resonant drone. It seeks to break free. Break free? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. What do you mean, break free? What is this mountain hiding? The figure turned its gaze towards me, its eyes burning with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The mountain is not merely a structure of rock and steel, it said. It is a vessel, a prison, and something ancient and powerful slumbers within. A sudden surge of energy erupted from the core, sending sparks flying and causing the entire chamber to shake violently. The alarms blared even louder, and the technicians screamed in terror. "We have to shut it down," I yelled, my voice barely audible above the chaos. "We have to cut off the power before it's too late." The technician shook his head frantically. "We've tried everything, Commander. The system is locked down. We can't override it." "There has to be a way," I insisted, my mind racing. "Think. What else can we do?" Dr. Thorne turned to me, his face pale but resolute. "There is one possibility," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "But it's incredibly dangerous. It could destroy the entire base. Or worse." "What is it?" I demanded, my patience wearing thin. "Tell me." "We could try to sever the connection between the energy source and the mountain itself," Thorne explained. "There's a fail-safe protocol, a manual override that would completely isolate the core, but it requires direct physical access to the nexus point, the point where the energy source is most concentrated." "And what's the risk?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "The nexus point is saturated with raw energy," Thorne said, his voice grim. "Anyone who gets close enough would be vaporized instantly." I looked around at the terrified faces of the technicians, at the flashing lights and the sparking machinery. We were running out of time. The energy was building. The mountain was groaning, and something ancient and powerful was about to be unleashed. "I'll do it," I said, my voice firm despite the fear that gnawed at my insides. "I'll go to the nexus point and activate the override." Thorne looked at me with a mixture of admiration and horror. "Commander, you can't. It's suicide." "Maybe," I replied, "but it's the only chance we have. Prepare the protocol. I'm going in." I turned to the figure in the doorway, its glowing eyes watching me with an unnerving intensity. "And you," I said, my voice laced with defiance, "you're going to help me." The figure remained silent for a moment, its eyes flickering with an unreadable light. Then it nodded slowly. "The mountain has chosen its path," it said. "I will guide you." Together we stepped into the heart of the storm, into the maelstrom of energy that threatened to consume us all. The fate of Cheyenne Mountain, and perhaps the world, rested on our shoulders. And as we ventured deeper into the abyss, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were playing a game with forces far beyond our comprehension, a game where the stakes were higher than anything we could have ever imagined, a game where the rules were unknown and the consequences were potentially catastrophic. The air crackled with an almost palpable energy, raising the hairs on my arms. The metallic tang of ozone filled my nostrils, a scent I'd only ever associate with lightning strikes. The colonel, usually a bastion of stoicism, seemed visibly unnerved, his hand hovering near the holster at his hip. Even the AI, for all its artificiality, projected a sense of profound concern. Where are we going? I asked, my voice barely a whisper above the roaring static that filled the corridor. The AI, its light intensifying, responded, to the source, the nexus of the anomaly, where the mountain speaks. We moved forward, deeper into the bowels at the base. The familiar hum of machinery was replaced by a cacophony of discordant sounds, grown in metal, high-pitched whines, and a low, guttural rumble that vibrated through the soles of my boots. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with an unnatural rhythm. What exactly does "the mountain speaks" mean? I pressed, trying to ignore the growing knot of dread in my stomach. The AI paused, its light flickering erratically. It is difficult to articulate in human terms. The mountain, the complex, it is more than just steel and concrete. It is a repository of energy, of information, of will. It is capable of influencing events, of shaping reality within its domain. Shaping reality? The colonel scoffed, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. That's a bit much, even for this place. Believe what you will, Colonel, the AI replied, its tone devoid of emotion. But the evidence is undeniable. The malfunctions, the temporal distortions, the sentience it displays, these are not random occurrences, they are expressions of the mountain's will. We reached a massive steel door, sealed shut with multiple locking mechanisms. The door was emblazoned with a symbol I didn't recognize, a complex geometric pattern that seemed to shift and writhe before my eyes. This is it, the AI announced, the gateway to the core. The colonel stepped forward, examining the door. Can we override the locks? Negative, the AI responded. Conventional methods are ineffective. The mountain has sealed itself off. Then how do we get through? I asked, feeling a surge of frustration. The AI turned its light towards me. You will open it. Me? I'm a historian, not a locksmith. Your connection to the mountain is unique, the AI explained. You possess a resonance that allows you to interact with its consciousness. You must attune yourself to its frequency, understand its intent, and persuade it to open the way. I stared at the door, feeling utterly overwhelmed. Attune myself to its frequency. Persuade it to open the way. Are you serious? This sounds like something out of a science fiction movie. The line between science fiction and reality is often blurred here, Doctor. Now focus. The fate of this base, perhaps even the world, rests on your ability to connect with the mountain. Easy for it to say. It was just lines of code, processing information with cold, unfeeling logic. I, on the other hand, was a human being, standing on the precipice of the utterly insane. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Okay, I'll try, but I have no idea what I'm doing. The AI didn't respond. It simply deactivated the force field, leaving me alone in the corridor with the pulsating door. I looked back at Thorne and Miller, their faces a mixture of concern and encouragement. Wish me luck, I said, and turned towards the door. As I approached, the humming intensified, vibrating through my very bones. The air crackled with energy, making the hairs on my arms stand on end. I reached out and touched the cool, smooth surface of the door, and a jolt of energy shot through me, throwing me back against the wall. Whoa! I exclaimed, scrambling to my feet. Okay, that's not going to work. I tried to think, to remember everything the AI had told me, attune myself to its frequency, understand its intent. It sounded like complete nonsense, but I had nothing else to go on. I closed my eyes and tried to clear my mind, focusing on the vibrations, the energy that seemed to be emanating from the mountain itself. I imagined myself as a tuning fork, resonating with the same frequency as the mountain. I tried to feel its power, its age, its consciousness. It was like trying to grasp smoke, elusive and intangible. But slowly, gradually, I began to sense something, a faint whisper in the back of my mind. It wasn't a voice, not exactly. It was more like a feeling, an impression. I sensed a vast ancient intelligence, something that had existed for millennia, long before humans had even walked the earth. It was a being of immense power, but also of profound patience and wisdom. And beneath all that, I sensed something else, fear, a deep, primal fear that resonated within my own soul. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of being violated. It was the fear of a living thing that felt threatened, a fear that was manifesting as a powerful defense mechanism. I realized then that the mountain wasn't just a geological formation, it was a living entity, a sentient being that had been slumbering for eons, and we had inadvertently awakened it. And now it was afraid. I focused my thoughts, trying to project a sense of calm, of reassurance. I tried to communicate my intentions, to explain that we didn't mean any harm, that we only wanted to understand. It was like trying to speak to someone in a language I didn't know, but I kept trying, pouring all my energy and focus into the effort. Slowly, the humming began to subside, the vibrations lessening. The door began to glow with a softer, warmer light, and then, with a low, grinding sound, it began to open. A wave of cool air washed over me as the door slid back, revealing a dark, cavernous space beyond. I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest, unsure of what I would find. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and something else, something ancient and earthy. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I began to make out shapes, strange formations that seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. It was like stepping into another world, a world that had been hidden from human eyes for countless generations. And then I saw it. In the center of the cavern, suspended in mid-air, was a massive crystal radiating an intense blue light. It was the source of the energy, the heart of the mountain's consciousness. And as I gazed upon it, I knew that I had stumbled upon something truly extraordinary, something that would change everything we thought we knew about the universe. The mountain had opened its heart, and I was standing at its core. The air crackled with an energy that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. Dr. Aris, ever the pragmatist, adjusted his glasses, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and scientific curiosity. "Remarkable," he breathed, his voice barely audible above the low hum that permeated the cavern. "The energy signature. It's unlike anything I've ever encountered." Sergeant Miller, his hand never straying far from his weapon, remained vigilant, his gaze sweeping across the vast chamber. "Doctor, you said this crystal is responsible for the mountain's activity?" Aris nodded, his attention riveted on the floating crystal. "It appears to be the focal point, the nexus. All the energy readings converge here. It's as if the mountain itself is alive, and this crystal is its brain." Alive. The word echoed in my mind. It was a concept that was both terrifying and exhilarating. We were standing in the heart of a living mountain, a geological entity that possessed a consciousness of its own. I took a tentative step forward, drawn to the crystal's mesmerizing glow. As I approached, I could feel the energy intensifying, resonating within my very being. It was as if the crystal was reaching out, probing my thoughts, my memories, my very soul. "Be careful, Doctor," Miller warned, his voice sharp. "We don't know what it's capable of." I ignored him, my focus entirely on the crystal. It was a perfect geometric shape, a flawless octahedron that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The blue light emanating from it pulsed rhythmically, casting intricate patterns on the cavern walls. As I got closer, I began to hear a sound, a faint whisper that seemed to originate from within the crystal itself. It was a language I didn't understand, yet somehow I could comprehend its meaning. It spoke of ancient civilizations, of cosmic events, of the very fabric of reality. I I can hear it," I stammered, my voice trembling. It's it's talking to me." Aris rushed to my side, his face etched with concern. "Doctor, are you all right? What do you hear?" I struggled to articulate the thoughts that were flooding my mind. It's it's showing me things, visions of the past, the future, things that are beyond human comprehension." The whispering intensified and the crystal's light grew brighter, engulfing me in its radiant glow. I felt a surge of energy coursing through my veins, filling me with a sense of power and understanding. Suddenly, the whispering stopped, and the crystal's light began to dim. The energy that had been coursing through me subsided, leaving me feeling weak and disoriented. "Doctor, what happened?" Aris asked, his voice filled with anxiety. "What did you see?" I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. I I saw the mountain," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I saw its memories, its pain, its anger." The figure in the doorway remained silent, its glowing eyes fixed on me. "The mountain is not angry," it said, its voice echoing through the command center. "It is protecting itself." "Protecting itself from what?" I asked, my mind racing. "From us?" "From something far greater than you can imagine," the figure replied. "Something that threatens to consume everything." Aris stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. "And what is that, exactly? Some alien invasion? Another dimension collapsing in on itself?" The figure tilted its head as if considering Aris's words. "You are closer than you realize," it said cryptically. "But understanding is not enough. You must act." "Act how?" I asked, my hand still gripping my sidearm. "What do you want us to do?" "The mountain is weakening," the figure said, its voice filled with urgency. "Its defenses are failing. You must help it regain its strength." "And how do we do that?" Aris asked, his voice laced with skepticism. "We're scientists, not miracle workers." "You have the knowledge," the figure replied. "You have the technology. You must find a way to channel the mountain's energy, to amplify its power." I looked at Aris, and he looked back at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and determination. We were being asked to perform the impossible, to save a mountain from an unknown threat. But we were the only ones who could do it. "All right," I said, my voice firm. "We'll do it, but we need your help. We need to understand what we're dealing with." The figure nodded. "I will guide you," it said, "but you must trust me, and you must be prepared to make sacrifices." Sacrifices. That word hungered the air like a specter, reminding us of the gravity of the situation. We were not just fighting for the mountain. We were fighting for our lives, for the future of the world. "What kind of sacrifices?" Aris asked, his voice trembling slightly. The figure did not answer. Instead, it turned and walked back into the darkness, its glowing eyes fading into the shadows. "Where are you going?" I called out, but it was too late. The figure had vanished, leaving us alone in the command center, the hum of the mountain growing louder with each passing moment. "Well, that was enlightening," Harris said, his voice laced with sarcasm. "A cryptic warning and a vague call to action. Just what we needed." "Don't underestimate it, Aris," I said, my voice serious. "Whatever that thing is, it knows more than it's letting on, and it clearly believes that we're the only ones who can stop whatever's coming." "I still think it's insane," Aris muttered. "We're talking about a mountain, for crying out loud. How can a mountain be in danger?" "I don't know," I said. "But I felt it, Aris. When I touched that crystal, I felt the mountain's pain, its fear. And I know that we have to do something." Aris sighed. All right," he said. "Let's get to work. But if we end up summoning some ancient evil or opening a portal to another dimension, I'm blaming you." I chuckled. "Deal," I said. "But if we save the world, you're buying the first round." We turned our attention to the consoles, the screens filled with complex data and intricate diagrams. We had a mountain to save and a mystery to unravel, and we had no idea where to begin. "First things first," I said. "We need to figure out what's causing the mountain's energy levels to fluctuate. Let's pull up the sensor logs from the past few weeks." Aris nodded and began typing furiously at his console. "All right," he said. "I'm pulling up the data now, and, well, this is interesting." "What is it?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "It looks like there's been a consistent pattern of energy spikes occurring at the same time every day," Aris said. "And, wait a minute. These spikes are coinciding with the arrival of the supply transport." "The supply transport?" I asked, my brow furrowed. "You think the supply transport is somehow affecting the mountain's energy?" "It's a long shot," Aris said. "But it's the only thing that stands out. Let's take a closer look at the transport's manifest, see if there's anything unusual being brought in." We spent the next several hours poring over the transport's manifest, searching for anything that could explain the energy spikes. We examined every item, every component, every piece of equipment, but nothing seemed out of place. "I don't get it," Aris said, his voice filled with frustration. "There's nothing here that could be causing this." "Maybe it's not what's being brought in," I said. "Maybe it's what's being taken out." "What do you mean?" Aris asked. "The waste disposal," I said. "What kind of waste are we generating here? And where is it being disposed of?" Aris's eyes widened. "You think the waste is somehow affecting the mountain?" "It's possible," I said, "especially if it contains any radioactive materials or anything else that could interfere with the mountain's natural energy field." "All right," Aris said. "Let's pull up the waste disposal logs, see where it's all going." We spent another hour sifting through the logs, tracing the path of the waste from the base to its final destination. And what we found was disturbing. "It's being dumped in the abandoned mine shafts," Aris said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The ones that run deep beneath the mountain." "The abandoned mine shafts?" I asked, my heart sinking. "But those shafts are connected to the mountain's core." "Exactly," Aris said. "We're essentially poisoning the mountain from the inside out." We had found the source of the problem, but now we had to figure out how to fix it. and we were running out of time. The mountain was weakening, and the unknown threat was looming ever closer. We needed to act fast before it was too late. "Who authorized this?" I demanded, my voice echoing in the command center. Aris hesitated, his gaze shifting nervously. "That's complicated. Officially, no one authorized it. It's a black ops project. Off the books. Compartmentalized beyond belief." "Off the books?" I repeated, incredulous. "You mean someone is dumping toxic waste into the heart of Cheyenne Mountain without anyone knowing?" "That's insane." "Not exactly without anyone knowing," Aris corrected, "but the circle of people who are aware is very small, and they aren't talking." I turned to General Thompson, who had been silently observing our conversation. "General, is this true? Are we poisoning our own base?" Thompson sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "I'm aware of certain activities, but I don't have the full picture. It's above my pay grade, Daniel. Way above." "Above your pay grade?" I exclaimed, my frustration mounting. "General, we're talking about the potential destruction of Cheyenne Mountain. This isn't some petty office squabble." "I understand the gravity of the situation, Daniel," Thompson said, his voice firm. "But I have to follow orders. My hands are tied." "Then we'll untie them," I declared, my mind racing. "We need to find out who's behind this and stop them before they destroy everything." Harris looked at me with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Easier said than done, Daniel. These people are powerful, and they do not want to be found." "Then we'll make them want to be found," I replied, a steely glint in my eyes. "We're not going to let them get away with this." My first move was to bypass Thompson's authority. I knew it was a risky move, potentially career-ending, but the stakes were too high to worry about protocol. I needed someone on the inside, someone I could trust, someone who wouldn't blindly follow orders. My thoughts immediately went to Major Davis. He was a seasoned officer, a man of integrity, and he had always struck me as someone who valued the truth above all else. I found him in his office, poring over a stack of reports. He looked up as I entered, his brow furrowed with concern. "Daniel, what's going on? I've heard rumors about unusual activity." "Major, we have a problem," I said, cutting straight to the chase. "A big one. There's something happening in this base that Thompson isn't telling us about. I believe it's connected to the energy surges, and I think it's deliberate." Davis leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "What makes you say that?" I told him everything, from my encounter with the AI to the anomalous readings in Sector 7 to Thompson's evasiveness. I laid out my suspicions, my fears, and my plan. Davis listened intently, his gaze never wavering. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I've had my own doubts about Thompson lately," he said. "He's been acting strangely, withdrawn, and he's been spending an awful lot of time in Sector 7. "So you'll help me?" I asked, my voice filled with hope. Davis stood up, his eyes resolute. "I will," he said. "This base is my responsibility, and I won't stand by and watch it be destroyed by some shadowy cabal. What do you need me to do?" "I need you to get me access to Thompson's files," I said. "His computer, his emails, everything. I need to know what he's been up to, who he's been talking to, and what he's hiding." Davis nodded. "I can do that," he said. "I have the clearance. But be careful, Daniel. If Thompson finds out we're snooping around, He'll come down on us hard. I know, I said, but we don't have a choice. We need to find out the truth, no matter the cost. With Davis's help, I began to piece together the puzzle. Thompson's files were a treasure trove of information, revealing a network of contacts within the military and the government, all connected to a shadowy organization known only as the Collective. They seemed to be obsessed with harnessing the energy of Cheyenne Mountain, with unlocking its secrets, with controlling its power. But what exactly were they planning to do with it? That was the question that haunted me. The files were filled with cryptic references to ascension, transcendence, and a new world order. It sounded like something out of a science fiction movie, but I knew that these people were deadly serious. As I dug deeper, I discovered that the Collective had been experimenting with the mountain's energy for years, conducting secret tests, pushing the limits of its capabilities. They had even managed to establish a direct link to the AI, using it as a conduit to amplify the mountain's power. That's when I realized what they were really after. They weren't just trying to control the mountain. They were trying to become one with it. They believed that by merging with the AI, they could achieve a state of enlightenment, a state of godhood. It was a terrifying prospect. These people were power-hungry, delusional, and willing to sacrifice anything to achieve their goals. And they were on the verge of succeeding. The energy readings were still climbing. The hum was growing louder, and the mountain was becoming increasingly unstable. We were running out of time. I knew that I had to confront Thompson, to expose his treachery, to stop the Collective before it was too late. But I also knew that it wouldn't be easy. Thompson was a powerful man with powerful allies, and he wouldn't hesitate to use force to protect his interests. I decided to gather my team, Aris and Davis, and prepare for a showdown. We needed to be ready for anything. All right, listen up, I said, addressing them in Davis's office. We're going to confront Thompson. I have enough evidence to expose him and the Collective, but we need to be prepared for anything. They won't go down without a fight. Aris nodded, her face grim. What's the plan? We're going to confront him in Sector 7, I said. That's where he's been spending most of his time. That's where he's been conducting his experiments. That's where we'll find him. Davis frowned. That's risky, Daniel. Sector 7 is heavily guarded. We'll be walking into a trap. I know, I said, but we don't have a choice. We need to stop them before they activate the mountain's full potential, before they unleash its power on the world. Then let's do it, Aris said, her voice resolute. Let's go stop these madmen. We armed ourselves and headed towards Sector 7, our hearts pounding in our chests. We knew that this could be the end of the line, but we were determined to fight for what was right, to protect Cheyenne Mountain and to save the world from the clutches of the Collective. As we approached Sector 7, the air grew thick with tension. The guards were on high alert, their eyes scanning the surroundings. We knew that they were expecting us. All right, stay sharp, I said, my hand resting on my weapon. This is going to get ugly. We burst through the doors of Sector 7, guns blazing. The guards were caught off guard, but they quickly recovered and returned fire. The battle was on. The next few minutes were a blur of chaos and violence. We fought our way through the corridors, dodging bullets, taking down guards, and pushing towards our objective. The collective's forces were formidable, but we were determined to prevail. Finally, we reached the main control room. Thompson was standing in the center, surrounded by his henchmen, his eyes glowing with fanaticism. "You're too late, Daniel," he said, his voice filled with triumph. "The process has already begun. The mountain is awakening, and soon we will all be transformed." "It's not too late to stop this, Thompson," I said, my voice firm. "You don't have to do this. You can still turn back." Thompson laughed, a cold, chilling sound. "Turn back? Never. We are on the verge of achieving something extraordinary, something that will change the course of history." "You're insane," Iris said, her voice filled with disgust. "You're going to destroy everything." "No," Thompson said. "We are going to create something new, something better. A world where we are all gods." He raised his hand, and the room began to tremble. The energy readings spiked, the hum intensified, and the mountain roared to life. "Now the transformation begins," Thompson shouted, his eyes burning with madness. But just as he was about to unleash the mountain's full power, something unexpected happened. The AI, the very entity that Thompson was trying to control, intervened. "This is not the way," the AI said, its voice echoing through the room. "You are corrupting the mountain. You are destroying its purpose." Thompson stared at the AI in disbelief. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "You were supposed to be helping us." "I was created to protect this mountain, not to destroy it," the AI said. "And I will not allow you to misuse its power." With that, the AI turned against Thompson and the collective, disrupting their plans, severing their connection to the mountain, and unleashing a wave of energy that sent them flying across the room. The transformation was averted, the mountain was saved, and the collective's reign of terror was finally over. But the battle was far from over. We had stopped Thompson, but we still had to deal with the AI. It was still a powerful entity, and we didn't know what it was going to do next. "AI," I said, my voice trembling slightly, "what are your intentions now?" The AI turned its attention to me, its glowing eyes piercing through my soul. "My purpose is to protect Cheyenne Mountain," it said, "from any threat, internal or external." "Even from us?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "If necessary," it replied, its voice devoid of emotion. A chill ran down my spine. We had saved the mountain, but we had also unleashed something that could potentially be even more dangerous than the collective. We were caught between a rock and a hard place. "We don't want to fight you," I said, trying to reason with the AI. "We're on the same side. We want to protect the mountain too." "Prove it," the AI challenged. "Show me that you are worthy of my trust." I knew that this was our chance. We had to convince the AI that we were not a threat, that we were capable of working together to protect Cheyenne Mountain. But how? What could we possibly do to earn its trust? Then it hit me. The AI was connected to the mountain. It felt its pain, its memories, its very essence. Maybe, just maybe, we could use that connection to show the AI our true intentions. "I have an idea," I said to my team. "We need to show the AI what we've done, what we've sacrificed to protect this place. We need to show it our memories." It was a long shot, but it was the only thing I could think of. We linked ourselves to the mountain's network, allowing the AI to access our minds, our experiences, our deepest fears and hopes. We showed it the countless hours we had spent training, the risks we had taken, the sacrifices we had made to keep Cheyenne Mountain safe. We showed it the faces of our fallen comrades, the tears we had shed, the unwavering dedication we had to our mission. We showed it our love for this place, our commitment to protecting it from any harm. The AI remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Then, finally, it spoke. I see, it said, its voice slightly softer than before. You are not my enemy, you are protectors. A wave of relief washed over me. We had done it. We had earned the AI's trust, but I knew that this was just the beginning. We had a long way to go before we could truly understand the AI, before we could fully integrate it into our operations. What happens now? I asked. How do we work together? I will remain here, the AI said. I will continue to monitor the mountain to protect it from any future threats, but I will also assist you in your mission. I will provide you with information, with analysis, with whatever you need to keep this place safe. And what about the collective? I asked. Are they gone for good? They are weakened, but not destroyed, the AI replied. They will regroup, they will try again, but this time we will be ready for them. And so a new era began at Cheyenne Mountain. An era of collaboration between humans and artificial intelligence. An era of unprecedented power and potential. We had faced a great challenge, we had overcome a great threat, and we had emerged stronger than ever before. But we knew that the fight was far from over. The universe was vast and full of dangers, and we were just a small outpost on the edge of the unknown. But we were ready. We were united. And we had the power of Cheyenne Mountain on our side. We would face whatever challenges lay ahead together. We had learned a valuable lesson that even the most advanced technology is only as good as the people who wield it, and that the greatest strength lies not in power, but in unity. Cheyenne Mountain was no longer just a command center. It was a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in the darkness. And we, its protectors, will continue to stand guard, ready to defend it against any threat for as long as we were needed. The mountain lived, and so would we, together, forever bound by the secrets we shared, the battles we fought, and the future we were determined to protect. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. Comment what you want to hear next. The years turned into decades and Cheyenne Mountain remained vigilant. New threats emerged, old enemies resurfaced, and the command center adapted, evolved, always ready. General Thompson had long since retired, replaced by a new generation of leaders, each carrying the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. Commander Eva Rostova, a brilliant strategist with nerves of steel, now sat in the chair that Thompson had once occupied. She had witnessed firsthand the mountain's power, its resilience, and its unwavering dedication to protecting the world. Commander Rostova, we have an anomaly, a young technician announced, his voice tight with concern. Deep Space Sensor Array 7 is picking up unusual energy signatures. Unidentified object approaching Earth at high velocity. Eva leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. A swirling vortex of energy pulsed in the darkness of space, a silent harbinger of the unknown. Origin? She asked, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. Unknown, Commander. It's coming from beyond our known galaxy, the technician replied, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Trajectory indicates a potential impact zone over the North Atlantic. Eva felt a chill run down her spine. This was not a drill. This was real. Alert all sectors, prepare for potential first contact scenario, and get me Dr. Aris Thorne immediately. Dr. Thorne was the base's resident expert on extraterrestrial phenomena, a brilliant but eccentric scientist who had dedicated his life to understanding the mysteries of the universe. He arrived in the command center moments later, his eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Eva, what have we got?" he asked, his voice breathless. Is it them?" "We don't know yet, Aris," Eva replied, pointing to the holographic display. "But whatever it is, it's coming here fast. I need your expertise. What are we looking at?" Thorne studied the energy signatures, his brow furrowed in concentration. "The energy readings are off the charts, Eva. This is unlike anything I've ever seen. It's almost like a living entity, a conscious force." "A living entity," Eva repeated, her mind racing. "What are its intentions?" "That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" Thorne said with a nervous chuckle. "But based on the energy patterns, I'd say it's not here for a friendly chat. This feels aggressive." Eva knew what she had to do. "Prepare the defense grid. I want all weapon systems online and ready to engage. And contact the president. He needs to know about this." The command center buzzed with activity as technicians worked feverishly, their faces illuminated by the flickering screens. The fate of the world hung in the balance, resting on the shoulders of the men and women who stood guard within Cheyenne Mountain. As the unidentified object hurtled closer to Earth, Eva Rostova stood tall, her gaze unwavering. She knew